It's rum and Coke, by the way. So just like pretty much every other tech or gaming enthusiast on YouTube, I've seen the new PS5, and I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of it or what Sony's doing with this mid-cycle refresh, but I also was debating on whether or not to even make this video, because I remember what happened the last time I critiqued something Sony did, but it's okay, because I came prepared for all the Sony ponies, so bring it on, boys. Either way, let's talk about the new mid-cycle refresh for the PS5. Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. Now let's talk about the new PS5. Now, Sony's no stranger to mid-cycle refreshes for their console. They've been doing it all the way back with the PS1 as a miniaturized revision of the PlayStation 1. We also had designs for the PS2, PS3, PS4, so it only makes sense that we got it for the PS5 as well. But this is not a slim model, at least not by name, though it does seem to be smaller in a lot of ways. And there are a few good things that Sony did with this console that I think are worth noting. And some of them are good just because they're good, and some of them are good on the surface, and, well, we'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, the first positive with this console is that we now have a nice even terabyte of storage, and, well, it's great to have considering we only had 120 some odd gigs previously, but it still also kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, and I feel like we should have a bit more, or at least an option to get more, since 1 terabyte on these consoles is kind of like what 500 gigabytes was on the last generation of consoles. It's not enough, and you can fill it pretty quickly with a handful of new games. The second good thing is that we now have a second USB-C port on the front of the console, which is still 2 more than what we have on any version of the Xbox. I don't know why they haven't put it on the Xbox, but Sony now has 2 of them. Nintendo has USB-C on it. Even the iPhone has USB-C now. So yeah, the Xbox is the only one without USB-C. But there is one thing about those USB-C ports that bugs me, and I don't think Sony's ever going to address it, or at least they won't for quite a while. At the speeds that modern SSDs can run, especially through full-speed 10 gigabit USB-C, there is no reason why Sony can't enable us to run these newer games off of an external SSD. There's no reason. The internal storage and external storage options that have been available on PCs for years are exactly the same speeds. There is no reason why you can't just get some kind of high-speed external SSD and run it off the console. I get that they want to say that this internal SSD is crazy fast and it ridiculously reduces loading times, but I've got SSDs now that are the same speed through a cable that the PlayStation is rocking internally. And that's both on the main SSD and on the one that I added. So I don't know why they still haven't added that, especially now that we have 2 USB-C ports, because, I mean, what are you going to do with it? I guess they want 1 USB-C port to be used for that portal thing, maybe, if that's got a dongle. Or no, they probably want to use it for those overpriced headphones that only work with the portal. But either way, yeah, I guess they want to give you an extra one so you can still have one free for something when you plug it in. I don't know, whatever. It's there now. And the third kind of positive until you look more into it is that they've now given us something we haven't seen since the days of the Xbox 360, which is the ability to add a disk drive to the console. Microsoft did this back in the day with the 360 with an expansion option for HD DVDs. Y'all remember that? Yeah, that was the standard that Microsoft bet on, and, well, we all know how that turned out. But yeah, you can now add a disk module to a diskless PS5 if you went with the all-digital version before and then you decided you wanted to play disc games. But this is where things kind of start to go off the rails, and this is also the end of the positives. Actually, I take that back. There is one more positive, which is that you still have the DualShock controllers, which is still easily the best controller revision of any console generation. But yeah, aside from that, that's the end of the positives. Let's get into, well, what is absolutely going to get me some hate. So sticking with the disk drive, if you want to buy that disk drive, it is an $80 accessory. It doesn't even work outside of the console. It is just a module that will only work with that console. Like, even the disk drive you could buy for the Xbox 360 was an external module that was basically its own little thing that then plugged into the console. Like, it kind of tried to justify the price with its looks and all that kind of stuff, but this is literally a PC component designed to plug into the side of your console, and it's $80. That is kind of ridiculous. And as somebody who owns an all-digital PS5, I kind of didn't really have the want or need or care to buy a disk drive, so I don't know why they felt as though this was something cool to add. And actually what makes it worse is that this disk expansion means that if you buy a diskless version and then want to add the disk drive later, it makes the diskless version more expensive than just buying the disc version to begin with. And if you're wondering why that doesn't make sense, because $80 shouldn't take a $400 console and make it more than $500, well, it's because the discless version isn't $400 anymore. As somebody who personally owns a discless PS5, there are a couple different reasons why I bought it. Number one was because I liked the look better. It was much sleeker. I really liked the fact that it didn't have this weird bulge on the side. Second reason was because I didn't have any PS4 games to bring forward to the new generation that would have been on disc, and knowing Sony's lack of backwards compatibility at the time and how dog water it still is, I figured, I'm not bringing any games forward, I'm just gonna buy them all digitally. And the third reason was because it was $100 cheaper than the disc version. And I figured I'd take that $100 that I saved, put it into an SSD, so that way when they actually unlocked the ability to install an SSD, I could just slap a good one in there and never have to think about buying a disc again. And that's exactly what I did. But now, the discless version is $50 more, which means that you're not saving as much money. And if you decide down the road you want to buy a disc version, or get a disc expansion in this case, you are now spending more money to just put a disc drive in it when you could have actually saved money just buying the disc one in the first place. Why even buy the discless one at this point? It just feels like Sony thinks they can charge whatever they want and people will buy it, because that's kind of the fandom that they've established, unfortunately. So they can charge $50 more for the discless version and people will probably buy it. And if somebody wants to add a disc drive, they'll just buy the disc drive and not even think twice about the fact that they are spending more as a whole to get the discless and the disc drive than to just buy the disc version of the PS5 to begin with. Oh, but wait for this. You ready? It gets worse. I personally have never laid my PS5 down on the side. It just takes up too much space, and if I stand it upright, there's nothing above it, so I don't have to worry about things being obscured there, and it saves me a ton of space on the floor. It doesn't sit under my TV because it's too tall. It's too tall to put in front of the TV as well because it obscures part of the image. So vertical was my only option. And yet, if I want to do that on the new version, I have to spend $30 on the flimsiest looking stand I have ever seen. Actually, I take that back. There is one stand that I've seen that is flimsier than this overpriced add-on, and it's also part of the PS5. It's this kickstand that they put on the new version so that when you lay it vertical, it doesn't rock back and forth. I'm really struggling to see how this is better for the end user to have a tiny little kickstand and then buy a completely separate stand versus just having a stand that does both that comes in the box. Oh, nope, sorry. It's not better for the user. It's just better for Sony because they get to charge $30 for a stand because people are going to want to stand their consoles up. But I'll let you in on a secret. I can stand my PS5 up without the stand, and it seems to be just fine, even though I know ventilation's probably not the best. But if Sony's not going to care about us or our products, then why should I care about theirs? And continuing on, they made the top half glossy, which I already hated the glossy piano black in the center, which is why I bought a D-brand skin to just cover it and protect it. But then now it's on the outside, on the popped collar tuxedo white edges, except the bottom half, which are also matte now. Like the Xbox One already did the matte finish on one side, glossy finish on the other side, and it looked horrible after a few years, so I don't know why Sony figured that'd be a good idea too. All right, look, yes, I am really bashing on the PS5's new design here, but I'm doing it for a reason, and it's not because I just hate PlayStation and I'm a Nintendo or an Xbox fanboy or a PC gamer, whatever. I have every single console that's currently available, and I love playing every single one of them. In fact, I decided to keep my PS5, even though I was debating on selling it, because I looked at some of the exclusives that were coming down the pipe, and I think that they might be fun to play on the PS5 on my couch. But a lot of the new exclusives are still coming to the PC, and I really can't remember the last time an exclusive for the Xbox or the PlayStation really dragged me back to the console, because most of them, if not all of them, were also available on the PC, so I would just go and play them on PC. That goes for Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War. I think the only thing that isn't on PC that I'm interested in playing from Sony is Gran Turismo. So I think Sony should really focus more on making the software sell their console and not just redesigns. And if their goal is to make the selling point the redesign of the console, they should probably try and reduce the price of the console instead of jacking the price up on a model that was, in my opinion, probably one of the more competitive options, and definitely not charge a ridiculous $80 for an accessory that will only work and be usable on a device that will then be more expensive than the version that just comes with the accessory anyway. And maybe also don't nickel and dime people for a stand that looks extremely flimsy and for people who don't care about the thermals of their console isn't super necessary anyway. And on top of that, consider that people know now that your PS5 is no longer selling at a loss and that you're actually making profits on it. So an increase to the price of the device just seems like a greedy money grab. All these reasons together are why I'm not a big fan of and why I'm critiquing the new PS5 redesign. We already know that Sony's making a profit on this console, so charging more for it just feels like you're being nickeled and dimed. They're refining a design that was already polarizing, and for me, I wasn't a huge fan of anyway, and the software focus just isn't there. We don't have exclusives that draw people to the console because you can get them on the PC, and the handful of games that are exclusive to the PS5, like Gran Turismo and Valhalla, God of War, whatever, those games are really few and far between. It's pretty much just Nintendo at this point who's keeping their games locked to their system as an exclusive, and even then, you could technically emulate. So no, my reason for making this video has nothing to do with me being a hopeless fanboy of one console brand or another and just hating Sony and PlayStation. I just think that this move from them makes no sense, and it just feels like they're charging more money because they know they can. For me, I think that if you can get a PC, you can play pretty much any current title, especially if you're on Xbox, but even PlayStation has started bringing their exclusives over to the PC with some mixed results for certain games. At the end of the day, for me, I'm really glad I kept a hold of my all-digital PS5 because I would be so pissed if an exclusive came out that I really wanted, so I go to buy a PS5 and have to spend $50 more for the all-digital version than I originally did when I bought it. So I'm definitely not getting rid of that now, and if somebody asks me what PS5 they should get, I am absolutely telling them the disc version because at this point, the discless version is pointless. It's $50 less, just spend the extra $50 and don't even think about spending $80 on an overpriced disk drive accessory for a console that you should have just bought with the disc to begin with because there is no longer a reason to buy the discless. That, and I wouldn't even consider spending $30 on a flimsy ass little stand when you can just stand the console up and the thermals are what they are at that point. I really think that that is such a nickel and dime move and it genuinely pisses me off. Either way, that's been it. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts down below about the new PS5. What do you think about the redesign? I hope to see some calm, rational discourse in the comments down below. And of course, Sony ponies, I await your comments as well. YouTube, this is a prop, but I hope to see your comments as well. And no, I'm not going to be fueling the fire. I just kind of want to see what you have to say. Aside from that, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss more of it. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for being here, and have a good one.